Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is Citizen Daybreak. That is, the SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Danvas Makori is a commissioner with NCIC. Duncan Okach is a lawyer, an advocate of the High Court, rather. Namoya Otieno, an associate director, Africa for Human Rights Watch. And Dr. Alphonse Kanga is the regional chair, NCCK in Nairobi. Coming to you, Wakili Dan Okach, given the circumstances and what transpired yesterday, talk to us then about what the president termed as an act of treason yesterday in the breach of the parliament's security, saying that this will also bring to the government's long hand the planners, the financiers, the orchestrators and the abettors of violence and anarchy, whom he said had crossed the red line. What then happens in that regard? I mean, when you talk about treason, given that in Kenya death penalty is unconstitutional?
Yes, Ayub, one thing I would have hoped for and expected is that the president would have, used this as a watershed moment, taken his time, and maybe issued his speech today. And a speech that is issued at the heat of the moment will come with a lot of issues that will be regrettable. But unfortunately, once out of the tongue, you cannot reverse it. I say that because you look at our constitution, which the president quoted severally. And Article 1, the very first article, sub-article 1, is very clear, and Danvas has read it. All sovereign power, all, belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised in accordance with this constitution. Then sub-article 2, through their democratically elected representatives, including the president. So the power is with the people, and that is what people don't understand. If you had the president, it was the reversed way. The power is with them. The other one is the choice. And the reason I say that is because, one, you must understand the context of this. Remember, once this government was given the mandate by the people,
yes,
that mandate is based on what you promised the people. You promised the people, and unfortunately, people are saying, 2 years down the line, they are saying what you promised us is turning out to be lies. That's the first issue. 2, there are a lot of unfulfilled promises by now. 3, there's a lot of procrastination in the realization of those promises. You can't hype it too much. Expectation is a mother of frustration. The more you hype up expectation and you don't fulfill, the more the frustration will come. Now, in terms of that frustration, the people have told you, no, we don't think you are going in the right direction. And there's public participation in every aspect that you do. They have told you. But what is happening is that the government is pushing through its agenda, negating the will of the people. So these people, once you have said that the CS comes and chest thumbs and says, you will demonstrate, fine, but I dare you. That is arrogance. That is boastful. You are already daring them. Instead of knowing that these people came out peacefully the other week, you've dared them. Now, what happens is that after you give that statement, abductions take place in they block, they actually cordon off these areas in the morning. Who is probably given you the power to lead them? But you are shooting them because they are not in agreement with your vision. That is where now treason comes in. And the treason is by the state actors themselves, because you are negating Article 1, sub-article 1 and sub-article 2. Then you come and say that these particular checks and balances that are supposed to be there in the Constitution, which is primarily by Parliament, but it has still failed and people are still having an issue with that. And that is why there was an affront. If you look at this, they did not just go, which has failed. They actually went to the judiciary, which they are also accusing in terms of failure. They also went to some certain buildings associated with other countries, which they believe is a failure. They also went to businesses associated with the people who they believe are misadvising the president instead of advising. And that is why when they went to Parliament, they targeted 2 offices.
Yes.
And it is a message being sent to people. And one thing that is very clear, Ayub, is that the moment you, instead of coming out in a reconciliatory manner, in a manner that says, I have something. In a manner that says that maybe you do not believe me because I've been giving promises and I've not been keeping. Because even that promise, it was a very good promise in yesterday's statement, that I will engage you. Remember, the statement was made in church. And people are saying these are the churches where statements have been made and they have not been followed up. But today, you have made this statement again. Okay. So how do you expect this Gen Z to believe you that you'll engage them? Just a second, I finish, please. To engage them in this promise that was made yesterday, when you have not said, I'm stopping this process in the meantime, so that I engage you first. But
given, Wakili, what you have said, and also what we witnessed, the horror on institutions of government, still Katiba, whilst it accords the people all sovereign power under Article 1, also gives the people the leeway to go up to the line, not over the line, because of some sacred institutions like Parliament and like what we witnessed yesterday, the Office of the Chief Justice, which was set ablaze. I mean, then if this is the chaotic environment within which all these events are happening, how do we resolve our problems?
You know, Ayub, I'm so shocked when you talk like that, but I know you are like me. We were not there in 1960, 60, 61, 62, 63. That was what the Wazungus were telling people. You cannot cross this line. And if that was to be followed, we will never have had our independence. These are things that are put there to actually defeat, you know, you getting your sovereignty. Before Section 2A was removed, that was the red line. You couldn't cross. Do you know people died for that?
Wakili, should violence be part of the discussions we ought to be having in addressing our governance issues? That's the point I'm making.
And you have a very good point. And I wish the IG was here. I wish Bungei was here, because that's the person who should answer this. and the people at the Ministry of Interior. Remember, these people demonstrated last week. Did you see them carrying anything? Did you see them destroying anything?
No, that's what recorded as was yesterday.
They did no. Remember, it started then. They were okay. And I've given you a synopsis of why it arrived at that point.
Okay, point.
They actually planned for violence. The government planned for violence, and it has actually ended up. This is what they want. This is my father. If you look at her tweet yesterday, it tells you. And that's why I'm saying even the president should know, and all these people, their children are maybe supporting this.
That happened in other days. Because the people on the foreground, especially those who breached Parliament, were not the protesters who've been the other days. Because me, I was there watching and observing. So this was something, I wasn't watching TV, watching, and I was there. Let me tell you something. Those on the forefront, and the president is right, this thing was hijacked by a few elements which you've reported. Yeah. Those who were there moving and observing. You know how many times my car was stopped and almost stoned, thinking I'm an MP when they're looking and hunting for MPs. The goons and the thugs who are there were different than demonstrators. And the president actually differentiated between the demonstrators and the criminal element. There was, and we have to agree on that. There was violence yesterday. And who did it or who planned it, the fact was it was there. Okay? So this is what I'll say. And that's what there has to be we cannot lump everybody, because 95%, actually 99% of people are very peaceful, have been peaceful. The criminal elements that hijacked and took these, and now the narrative has changed. And I want to tell Gen Z not to allow people to hijack their movement. Yeah, because if you do that now, the tables change very quickly. Yeah. Lastly, let's agree to this, that yes, there's certain laws which we still have to abide by the rule of law. Protest has to be peaceful, which has been, and there was provocation here and there. Yes, we agree on that one. But when the law is being broken, when you breach a protected security area, according to the laws of Kenya, it is what it is. Now, the response could have been wrong, because in Mombasa, when the protesters marched towards the State House, the JSU shot in the air. They didn't shoot people, they shot in the air and they dispersed the crowd. Okay? And of course, they were just moving. So I would say this, that for those who are on the ground, things were radically different than the other days. And now that's a narrative and so we need to have genuinely, so that now the genuine issues, see, we're moving from the issues. People had issues with policy and governance. So we don't move away from the issues these Gen Zs and millennials have been agitating for. Because if we do that now, we lose track. Because now these people have hijacked the narrative. Now it's something totally different. And now what's the cause? So this cause can be hijacked, which is being hijacked now. And it's not a good thing.
But Danvas, I'll come to you, Dr. Danvas, when you say the hijacking aspect, also the president mentioned that in his speech yesterday, and he talked of what was a rather peaceful march was also the presence of organized criminals who had infiltrated the group and threatened Kenya's democracy that should be tackled. Accordingly, I assure the Kenyan people that we shall provide a full, effective and expeditious response.
Organic movement of young people across the country, from Marsabit to Turkana to Kajiado to Mombasa. So it is hard for some foreign hands to sponsor young kids across the country. That's not true. What I was saying is, if you were there, so we have to differentiate issues so that we don't mix issues. If you are there, and I feel sad and I feel bad for these kids who they have genuine peaceful protest and change, agitating change has been hijacked by just a few elements. Because if you were there yesterday, you could see, because I mean, if we've been to previous demonstrations, I've been to many of them, observing and making sure everything is fine. And the same goons, the same thugs who usually are there, the ones who were there yesterday. I saw them with my own eyes. This is not something I've been told, okay? I saw it. So that's why I'm saying we need to differentiate those people. But to accuse now genuine young people to saying there's a foreign hand, that actually is also not true.
Yes.
So let's be very factual,
yes.
so that we don't actually. How would you think as a Gen Z, when you paid for your own Uber, your matatu, paid for your own lunch and breakfast, to be told, hey, somebody's sponsoring you? You see, that's also not fair.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, facts have to be laid as they are.
Yes,
the progress of event can easily twist the country's mindset to concentrate on the goons. But the issue here is that finance bill was meant to provide hope to Kenyans. And then a team of Kenyans rear the door until she comes back. So there is anxiety, there is frustration in a number of Kenyans, in a number of the 52 million people. So when you see those children there, remember they are not just them. They are frustration behind the Kenyans' mindset. So if a number of them at one time you get them on the streets, you need to know, you don't miss the point, you need always to understand it's because of the hopelessness that is there. And that also tells you those Gen Z, they are not alone. They are there, the parents are not there, but their mind is there. Like now the issue is, what's the way forward, Abdi? The way forward, they expect, right now what's in the Kenyan mind, what's in the 52 million people is the president will not sign. That's what we are thinking. He's not going to sign so that we can sit on the table and agree on the next course of action. But when these structures move from one thing to the other, there's that anxiety. So, did we have other goons on the road? Yes, it's possible. Because those Gen Zs, they have their brothers in the house. And when their brothers see those young people dying on the street, what happens? That's why we need to have been proactive, not reactive. What we are doing now, we are reacting. What's the outcome of Gen Z? Now, we need to ask ourselves, with this anchor in the country right now, what's the reaction after he signs? So we can't let this situation go where they are. We need to provide hope to our people. Tell people, no, it has gone like this, but you know what? Our father, the president, will not sign. When he's not going to sign, we'll have a team to sit together and tell the way forward. But we can't say, now that we are here, the next course of action is going to sign, and then the goons, you are going to do what you want. We can't do that in this ship.
Okay. Given that there is a 14-day window period allowed by the Constitution for the bill to become law, either the president signs or automatically it becomes law. So what happens? Is that time frame enough for what the president termed as providing a way forward in terms of the framework within which these issues should happen? He said these are policy-related issues. They have no tribal connotations. He appreciated the young people's movement. But is time, then will that framework allow for these talks to happen?
I don't think time is the issue here. The issue, these boys and girls said they are fearless, they are partless, they are tribalists, they are manless. So if you tell them to sit down, they sit. You tell them to jump, they'll ask how high. So it will not even cost an hour. if we all sit right now and the president make a statement and say, what has happened is unfortunate. I call all of us to calm down. And anybody that's offended the other, we apologize to one another. Let's sit down and decide the next course of action. Before we sign, let's sit down and decide all of us as 52 million. Then we start moving. Our anxiety will be low. We'll know that we are not going to fight. We are going to agree as a nation.
Okay.
But time will not be an issue. Even if today, the unfortunate thing is yesterday, when there was name calling yesterday, goons, these people, what we are saying, the president might have been right. But the question is not who is doing now. The question is, what's the core issue? What's the matter?
Okay. Yeah, Namoya, is it time for the leadership of the country to relook at how they normally engage the Kenyan people through the social contract that they have?
Definitely. Protests are a form of expression. People express themselves in different ways. And by the time people come to the point where they decide now they are going to protest, there are a lot of other things they have tried. Remember that before the protests, people had tried to go to court. Last year, Omtata and the rest went to court. The court issued orders, and the president decided that those were saboteurs. I think he called them saboteurs, and he even threatened the courts. And at some point, people are beginning to lose trust in the courts because of some of the decisions that are beginning to come out of the courts. People are feeling like there's something that's not right. And then people also had petitions. There are petitions that have been sent to offices, senior government offices, where people are saying, this is not right, please change this. They don't feel so that they vote for this bill. So people realized
which we have no evidence to corroborate.
No, but this is being said by MPs. MPs themselves are saying they are being given 2 million to vote for the bill. So the issue of bribery in Parliament is not coming up for the first time. We cannot overlook it. So people feel all avenues for expression and representation have been closed. So they go to the streets to protest. When you block them, the way I saw the president saying that this is going to be a turning point, which may suggest that he wants now to crack down hard and block even the opportunities for protest, that becomes very dangerous. That's how societies explode. And one more clarification I need to make. It's okay, people have said this is a Generation Z protest, but I think we miss the point when we hammer that so that it looks Generation Z versus the rest. What these people are saying on the streets is what every other Kenyan is feeling.
Disagreeing with me. And you see, Danvers is telling us that, he's of that analogy of that red line. And I do agree, there are restricted areas which are even gazetted. But to the extent that anyone stepping on that particular line, you kill, and that is a Kenyan, that is wrong. There is an aspect of restraint. Remember, when Uhuru Kenyatta was in power, there was a person, a university student who went to State House, was actually climbing. He was not shot. They actually, and that was so good because they found he had mental issues. So if your issue is just shooting, then it means you'll be shooting everyone, even when I'm there, by mistake. The issue is restraint. But remember, these people...
But where then do you place the cards here, Wakili Dan? Because if we are to look at the conduct of even the previous regime from the perspective of constitutionalism, the rule of law, and good governance, there were cases where the rights of Kenyans were violated. For example, the case of Miguna, whose home was vandalized, a Kenyan who...
Where you can limit it is within the confines of the Constitution. What is indicated in the Constitution? So first of all, you must respect that life. So to the extent that even if someone is demonstrating, this person is not armed, is not even a police officer cannot just find you committing a crime and he shoots you. That is not how it's supposed to be. Unless there's a threat to his life, unless you're armed, unless you want to use a firearm, unless you want to kill someone else, that's when you're allowed to use that firearm. So to the extent of these protesters were outside Parliament. I want Danvers, who tells me that he was there, to tell me that a protester was not shot point blank outside Parliament. His brain spilled off. A very young person. If he didn't say that, then I wonder if he was outside there. If you get in, and this is not the first time parliaments have been breached. In the United States, there are, in 1950-something, disabled people breached the Congress, and it's called the American crawl. They were not shot. In 2020, when people were trying to say that Trump won and should have actually been sworn in, they actually breached the Capitol. And I'm telling you, the only people who were shot, and very few, were the ones who were inside, not outside. Here we have people being shot outside, not inside. That is where we are saying, when you're as a person is put at KICC and in parliament buildings, a sniper to shoot people outside, you are actually going against the law, and that now defeats the doctrine of restraint. These are unarmed. If they had come with guns, I can tell you, I will be the first one to say, shoot them. You don't know what they would have done. And that's why I'm saying, look at the genesis of this thing. Shooting these people, and the president is actually declaring another worse aspect in terms of the right to life by saying these acts are treasonous. That means all these people, according to him, have committed treason. And according to him, the Ochuka way is where he wants us to go. As lawyers, we will not allow that. We have a country. We will defend that. And the aspect of taking away life is not in our law today. You can only jail those people for life. But more importantly, everyone is alive to this. And let me tell you, these people, and I like what Namwai has said, in terms of numbers, there are so many. Yeah. You will do what you want to do today. Remember in it's which country where they even jailed a person who was going to contest, this Sonko person.
Senegal.
Senegal. And even with all that, the people made their decision, and the Sonkos and his colleague took power. That president is now in Europe as we speak. So these people, their will is so important. Their decision is so important. And time, this is the same president told us many times when he was the deputy president, power is transient. I don't know what has happened to that transient today, but power is transient. These young people will elect someone, and that someone will release all these people you want to jail. That same person will find you to have committed treason. So it is important for there to be restraint from the leadership. The Bible says, you know, as a leader, you are a father. You cannot just react. Even the prodigal son, the father took him back after all that. Do not be reactionary, especially with children.
Okay, Wakili, well, point taken. And quick notifications. In Senegal, things happened the democratic way, which was beautiful, that a young leader was installed as the president. And in drawing comparisons between what happened on January 6th at Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., that was largely a discontent Donald Trump, who denied the outcome of the elections. His own vice president then had said that things happened as the electoral process was envisaged. And it's not fair to also compare the two scenarios, because those were incited and by Trump, who largely was not held in high esteem, given that he lied 20,000 times between 2017 and 2021. And he wasn't in a position to either differentiate between whether Finland was in Europe or was in Russia. So the matter of seriousness. But here you have Kenyans who are decrying about a finance bill, matters that affect their lives, and there's no leader behind them, as Dr. mentioned here, of the formless, the tribalist aspect. But given that for a very long time, conversations around how to take our country forward had happened within the confines of the political establishment. For example, we had the National Dialogue Conference, which concluded its sittings at the Bomas of Kenya. Young persons were rarely taken into account. So what form of dialogue then will we have going forward here? Because the situation we have is that these young persons have thrown the wild card on the table, and the political cycle in the country seems to be now changing, given their constant ignoring and the sidelining, and now they seem to be now a serious and formidable force that the administration of the day and future ones have to fathom with.
I do agree with you 100% that American situation, the Trump situation, was so bad. So bad that you want to even change the will of the people. But through that, equivalent, it's treasonous. It's actually changing government. So according to him, it is a Trump situation. Those are the words that were used yesterday. And that is why it's still important and relevant. Lastly, in terms of the conversation going forward,
yes,
I've indicated that it would have been better for the president to say that I'm stopping this process for now, so that we can engage, whether it's 14 days, whether it's 7 days, it doesn't matter. Let me tell you, these people are not interested in even the president coming out of power or out of State House. They only have one issue, the finance bill, and listen to us. Only that. And that conversation can proceed. But will it proceed when we have been promised that wait, mutaona moto, within the next few days, mutaona moto? Yeah. Those are the people you want to sit down with them, yeah, and you want to take them to courts and to go the Ochuka way.
Yes,
no.
Yes, Danvas.
Just to be on the record, Okili, I don't agree with how little force was used yesterday. I mean, of course, so don't say that I'm defending that.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah, please don't blame me, because I saw it, yeah, and when the first shots were fired, it was outside. Actually, unfortunate that what happened yesterday, the tragic loss of life is highly regrettable, and how it was done, of course, is questionable. I really hope IPOA will take and follow due process, and due lawyers will help these families. But let's not lose focus on the main issues of what people are agitating. Let me just put a conflict analyst hat here by saying yesterday was the finance bill was a fuse, okay? It was a fuse in a bomb that went off. The real issues was still there. As I said, the real issues, the policy issue and governance, usually, as I said, yesterday's speech, the president actually mentioned, we have issues with governance, and Kenyans have a genuine concern on how they feel they're being governed. And that we cannot take it away from all Kenyans. Gen Zs and millennials are only speaking on behalf, as he said, on behalf of everyone. It's only that maybe the parents don't have the courage to go to the streets in the previous days that the young people have been doing, yeah, but they're speaking for everyone. So what I just want us to highlight is let's not take away the discussion narrative. The real focus is the issues that Kenyans have felt enough is enough, and you need to pay attention to us. You need to listen to us. And that's not been happening. And it is important because they have given notice. I feel that this thing is not done yet. It's just begun. In terms of how governance and politics will be done in our country for the rest and this is our country, this is a seismic shift, okay? And it's not politics as usual. I don't think even elected members understand what is happening on the ground. If you are there, it's a seismic shift. And everybody has been put to notice, regardless of who you are, whether elected or not, as long as you're a leader in this country, we have been put to notice on how governance is done. So let's listen to this young generation, yeah, and everybody else. And my plea is listening to do. Okay, we will discuss, and I was hoping that we discuss actually a way forward. Now, what do we do as a country? What do we do? Because, yes, how do you engage millions of young people? Because it was millions who came across yesterday. They don't have a leader, as Dr. has said, and we know they don't have this. The leaders have been trying to own the movement, have been put on the side and say, no, this is us. They don't want a face. It is them. It is very personal for them. So we need actually to figure out how now do we have a conversation with millions of children and young people, and even old people. It's basically 54 million Kenyans who are saying, this is the way the things are going are not correct. Listen to us, change course. So how do we, that's a discussion we need to have.
Yes. Dr. Alphonse, do you think, given the critical role of Parliament placed at the fulcrum point between the executive and the judiciary because of money aspects in terms of allocation, representation of the people, oversight, checking excesses of government, do you think Parliament will change its course and listen to the Kenyan people, given the tone and the kind of language that they have been deploying for some time now?
Abdi, I wanted to say on the other side is that MPs are part of this nation. I started by saying that Kenya is 52 million, and Kenya is not a plantation of anybody. The first thing that we must agree is that the ruling class need to listen to the electorate. And the electorate are more than the ruling class. And so we must come up with a structure, what we call a win-win situation. So are they going to listen? If they are taught to listen as individuals, that's a different thing. But it's a high time right now where we are in this ship, now that we are still drilling a hole, we are sinking, whether they want it or not. There are things you don't need to want, is that you have to swallow your pride. So our MPs need to swallow their pride, And first of all, let's respect them. They are also Kenyans. Let's not hurt them because we elected them. So it's wrong to say that they stand there, we should vandalize their property. No, we need to bring them on board because they are part of the 52 million. But are they going to come up with a solution? We don't expect them to come up with a solution with what's happening around here. Where we are now, it's beyond that. That's why I talked about what we call a multi-stakeholder forum. For now, in 14 days, we need a multi-stakeholder forum. This forum will compose all of us interested with our nation, religious people, public intellectuals, manufacturers, the lawyers, and all of us. We need that forum to come and discuss the national agenda. The Genesis has put us there. The goons yesterday did their work. But all of us on this ship, can we come on the table and have a national agenda to discuss and ask ourselves, what is the next course of action? Number one, we cannot for you, it would be too wrong to say we are going to sign and we are going to continue as normal. That's not in such a country like this one, where we all live as a family. You sign and then you continue and then you look others inside. First of all, you cannot militarize a mindset. These people that are saying they are fearless, it's a mindset. What you saw is a mindset. Again, as we have all said, we have all agreed here that it's not about them. It's about 70% of Kenyans are with those agencies.
Okay. But then do you expect anything meaningful out of the conduct of parliamentarians, given what they have said and how they have acted? I mean, for the past few months and years, when you see members of parliament saying, Mimi hata sijasoma hiyo bill, but he's going to vote yes. When you see cabinet ministers telling the Kenyan people, go and dig your own oil wells, telling off the Kenyan people because of the hike in fuel prices last year, what we witnessed. When you have advisors to the president who are telling the Kenyan young generation that you have talked about, passionately so, about to go and focus on other issues, that governance is not part of what they should be focusing on. But this is a generation, can they understand this, that had the capacity to even translate the finance bill into all the dialects in this country, be it Taita, be it in Gikuyu, be it in Dhuluo, be it in Luya, in Somali, in Kalenjin. I mean, why can't they just understand the public mood, which is one of angst and anguish? And majorly this is about not entirely changing the structure of government. They just want good governance. Their money to be put into good use. They get education, they get healthcare, they get good roads, and they are sorted.
In our leadership in the country, we have very smart individuals, good leaders among them. But also among them, there are people that have special interest, and they are there as idol worshippers. They are there as sycophants. This is the biggest problem. But where we are right now, we don't expect them to come up and restructure this thing. We don't expect something good to come up from Parliament right now and say this is the way forward. Where we are right now is about the 52 million people. It's about us, the leadership, all of us. First of all, I said the ruling class need to listen, shape up, style up. And ruling classes, all of us involved. We just need to style up and quickly swallow our pride and tell these young people, please come on the table, let's discuss. Again, dialogue should be there.
Thank you. Yes, Namoy.
Dialogue is there.
Yeah, let me just clarify 2 points. One, when we talk about Parliament not listening to people, Parliament is just a symptom of the emasculation of the institutions of governance that has happened over the last 2 years. So you look at Parliament and what has happened, the election, the way it happened, and the allegations of bribery within Parliament. That's one institution. But look at the police. What happened just after the election, the change of leadership, the Inspector General, and then suddenly we start seeing police going to receive the orders and directions from the executive. That was not the police force that people envisaged when the constitution, this new constitution came into place. Look at institutions that are supposed to investigate police when they misbehave the way we saw yesterday. IPOA, when we have had killings like this during demonstrations, which is basically sanctioned by the state, we have seen IPOA act toothless. last year we had killings. IPOA, in its estimation, they said about 70 had been killed. They promised us that they would investigate. We haven't seen those prosecutions go ahead. We are seeing killings happening now. In 2017, we had over 100 people killed. We did present cases to IPOA, which showed a lot of evidence showing who killed and which police officers and why it was unfair. And
did the evidence meet the threshold required for that matter to be finalized conclusively by a court of law?
But before even that, you have to have investigations going on. What investigations did IPOA do? So what we are saying is there has been a systematic emasculation of institutions of government. Even the independent commissions, like my colleague here comes from the National Commission, the NCIC. What do they do nowadays? Because they were supposed to be the ones investigating hate speech. Some of the statements you have seen from political leaders amount to hate speech. But NCIC is quiet. So this is part of the governance problem. The second issue I wanted to clarify is the way we have, again, characterized this as a finance bill issue. Finance bill is just the trigger. But there have been underlying issues that have been boiling over time. People have been asking, why are we borrowing so much? Why do we have high debts? People have been asking, why are we being overtaxed? There was another finance bill in 2023. And people are asking, this is unfair taxation because we don't see why we are being taxed. Where does the money go? What is the development that we receive from the money that we are paying? And then the corruption. People see the opulence and the money that people are throwing around, the corruption in parliament, everything. And people are wondering, is this why we are being taxed? So that a few people can line their pockets.
Corruption is across though.
Yeah, but
that is stolen across even
the state has the responsibility to ensure accountability where there's corruption.
But they are institutions, aren't they?
That's why I'm saying the emasculation of institutions. Yeah. And then there's arrogance. The arrogance that we see, like some of the statements we saw people making, that I don't know, the MP from Thika, I don't know who, how they are even, it's very annoying. And then the lies. People think they can lie themselves into people's hearts. And this is a build-up of anger. People feel they're not represented, people feel they're not listened to, and people feel their resources are not being utilized properly. And these are governance issues. So when people stand up to express themselves, I think people need to be listened to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wakil Okachis, your account as we also take a look at the feedback, because there was an earlier issue that you have made about the death penalty, which for treason should be the death penalty. But how can that happen within the constitutional dispensation that we are in, and the abolishing of the death penalty as well? So in what context can that happen?
Yes, for capital offenses in Kenya, the penalty is death. It is still there in our constitution. Even though there are findings by the highest courts of the land that, death penalty is not okay, is not good, but we have to amend it. Nonetheless, they have truncated. Even when you are found guilty of a capital offense, you have the right to mitigate, and the court then has the latitude to either give you a life imprisonment in terms of even if the sentence is death. It normally amounts to life imprisonment, because the last person who was actually executed pursuant to the death sentence is Ochuka, according to the records. But nonetheless, gradually courts are even moving and have latitude to even give you time in terms of even lesser time, depending with what is there. So that's not a very big worry. But the big worry here, Ayub, is the fact that Matiba, when he was released from prison, people asked him, you are the president now, go and deal with these people ruthlessly. Matiba told them, if I am to deal with them, it will mean that someone has removed one eye, I remove their eye. They remove mine, another one, I remove theirs. We will all be blind. And he told these people, I will not revenge. When Kibaki took over power, many people told him, go after Daniel Moi and his cronies and the big words, take everything that is theirs. And he said, no, that is not the way to go. There is a song that really inspires me and inspires, I know, the young generation, sung by Kenny Rogers, which is called Something Inside So Strong. And it starts, just listen to the first part. It says, the higher you build your barriers. That is to the rich, to the powerful. You will build barriers, you will put electric fences. You will rebuild parliament, put electric fences there. But they say, the taller I become. People will, we counter. We have a mechanism in life that will counter. The more you take my rights away, that's the second part. And they say, the faster I will run. You take it away, and I will learn how to run. The more you try to muzzle the voice, the louder it will become. So to that extent, it does not help. I think this is a watershed moment, and I still repeat, we should go back to the drawing board. And the government should realize that the best way to go forward today is issue another presser. The first thing in that presser is an order to release all those who have been abducted. We don't know where people are. That is the first thing they should do, to show that we also agree we did wrong. The second thing, promise that there will be no more abductions. Third, pause the process of the finance bill for now. Fourth, promise that there are no more arrests. Fifth, take back the military to the barracks. If military people, have all what it has, they should be in Haiti. We have sent our police officers there. Then we are saying we are not able to even deal with internal, our children here, and we need the military. Yet our police are so powerful, so great, that we are sending them to Haiti. It doesn't make sense. Then the last thing, it is a wake-up call to the church, clergy, who have been quiet. Who own this government? And that I say it with capital letters.
Owning what has
They own this government. Let me tell you, they own this government.
The government belongs to the people.
And that's
the government
why,
is the Kenyan people.
No. Let me tell you, it is the church owns this government, and it's very important for people to underline that.
How so? How does
because the church, let me tell you, the church played an instrumental role in this government being in power. And remember, the church is in terms of the social fabric of a nation. The church is the voice that is outside that should speak to power and speak sense to power. We are here because the church is deep within power. They are appointed into power. They are appointed into positions. They own this government.
But there are no, what are the positions? You mean you're talking about cabinet level?
Not even cabinet level. Let me tell you.
Appointments? Let
me tell you, the people who advise government are not the people you see there in cabinet level who tell us there are so many ways to die. They don't have an idea of what happens there.
Who then, other than the advisors we know from your perspective, are from the church and advise the president?
I'm telling you, look at where the president goes every Sunday, and he used to go after.
He goes to
worship. And he will tell you not only worshiping, he speaks to those people. You had a chance with the president maybe in the US. I don't know if you had a one-on-one opportunity. How many times do you have that opportunity? The clergy has that opportunity each and every Sunday, and they had it from the time the president was a deputy. And at this point, it takes a person of reason to reason with the president and tell him, no, I think we are going in the wrong direction. The church is not doing that. They have failed. We have the aspect of the judiciary. The judiciary, it should be a wake-up call for the judiciary to know that if Kenya goes this way, especially on Thursday, tomorrow, even the judiciary will not just blame the executive, even the judiciary will be failing. People are being abducted. We are not even hearing the voice of Martha Koome until when people now had a hashtag on that. We have IPOA, which there should be a wake-up call to IPOA, because if they are doing what they are doing, even the police officers will not maim and shoot Kenyans with impunity, because each and every organization is put there with a purpose. We also have a wake-up call to Wananchi, because these leaders that we have in parliament, of course there's a wake-up call to parliament, but I don't know, they are so deep into this with their 2 million shillings that they've already been paid as alleged by one of them to even, disembark from that plane. But for the Wananchi, it's a wake-up call that you get the leaders you deserve. If you elect leaders who do not have a spine, leaders who are just there because of political parties, you'll end up with this, because those leaders go there, leave their brains outside, and they are given 2 million, and they...
So in other words, we are a reflection of ourselves.
We are a reflection of ourselves, and we should blame ourselves. And come 2027, We cannot elect bad leaders, people who are, we call them MPs afterwards, but then we come back and now protest.
Okay,
it's also not
we'll proceed, Dr. Kanga. I know you want to come in, but first let's sample the feedback and proceed as I take your account. Danvers, Dr. Kanga and Namoy here. This is what you're saying on X. The hashtag is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya. Dr. Kanga, will come back to you. Remy Butia says Kenya can ill afford to stumble into unrest. The country is starkly divided at a time when it needs unity to cope with the difficulties it faces. I pray for Kenya.
That's true.
Bob Otieno Winner says Gen Z has valid grievances, but where the rubber meets the line is when goons and politicians takes an advantage of their protest to create violence. It's high time they come together and form their own organization or a formidable political party. Ngeso_Jesse says, Dear Parliament, prioritizing interest with the essence of the majority over the minority due to disparity of power and money is no justice at all. The bill is passed, but we have lost the cohesion between the people and those conducting state functions. Baba Michael K says, I don't know the worst that can happen to Kenya if this particular finance bill 2024 is withdrawn. They say it's for the greater good of the people, but when the people say no and they are your boss, what do? Do you go ahead to deploy the Kenya Defense Forces? Agumba Steve says, it's so unfortunate how the legislators could vote yes for their selfish reasons despite the masses coming out to protest against the bill. Are our MPs sane? Esau says the president, meant to be a symbol of national unity, isn't acting like one. The protest is organic, and calling participants criminals in caveats will only fuel their anger. He should embrace dialogue as promised to heal the country. Gabi Wakasiaka says, indeed, Section 37 of the Constitution was violated by demonstrators yesterday. The police commands and orders were also violated. I jointly condemn the destructions, theft and vandalism by goons yesterday. It's totally unlawful. Evans Onyala One says yesterday's events at Parliament clearly indicate that sovereign power belongs to the people. I urge the government to listen to the voices of the majority and embrace dialogue for the better future of our country. Ngeso again says, our Father of all creation, bless Kenya, may we dwell in unity, peace and liberty, anti-corruption system of governance. They say iron sharpens iron. Buying politicians' vote defeats the need of the constitution, same as youths breaking into parliament. Gabi again says, I urge the president to listen to the voices of the Gen Zs, consider their perspectives and engage in meaningful discussions to find common ground that benefits all citizens, and decisive action is needed to restore peace and confidence. Again, he says, in these challenging times, I appeal to the president. Youths are the backbone of our nation, and their concerns must be addressed with empathy and understanding. Equally, the safety of every citizen is paramount, and decisive action is needed. Dr. Alphonse, just a reflection of the mood in the country?
Yes, that's the reflection. And actually, the reflection is simple, is that we need to sit down and agree the way forward. But let's not assume that all is well. There is a problem somewhere. But I just want to tell my friend that he should not blame the church, because when they come to church, we baptize them and give them names, and they tell us they expose the truth. Now, the question from there is, are they transformed by that truth? Exposure to truth does not mean transformation by the truth. We give them names and we support. We don't apologize for having baptized you and given you a Christian name, but we apologize for your actions. And so your actions, they are liable to God, not to us. Do we apologize for appointing somebody? No. Again, you say the church did. The church did. Do you think the church says they did? The church have a right to support everybody that comes to us and tells us, even you, if you came, we'll tell you you're okay. Is there anybody better than our president? No, we are all the same. We are all sinners. What we need is organize ourselves, structure ourselves, and be better people for tomorrow. But where are we? Let's not miss the point. The point is, way forward from here, please, let us not miss, as the general worldview of the community is, let's not miss the point. The point on the table is, let us engage Kenyans with honest discussions. Do not scaremonger and come up with issues like, we'll shut down. will do this. No, let's not do that. Let's come up with the issue of abduction. Let's deal with the issues of house levy. Let's deal with the issues of CAS. Are they necessary? And save our money. Let's deal with the taking of taxes. Is it necessary? Let's deal with the zero budget for some offices. Let's reduce state renovations. Let's deal with the issues of landlords uncomfortable with us. Let's deal with that. Unless we deal with that, we are only saying, as we have said, when you become so frustrated, when you think you are dealing with me and I'm frustrated, you will tell me to sit down. And I'm seated, but I'm standing. So, are you telling young people to sit down with the military? No. The young people will tell you, yes, I'm seated, but I'm standing in my mind. Let's not do that kind of a thing to our fellow Gen Zs. Gen Zs, I'm sure they are not going to sit down because the military is on the streets. They'll sit down with logical, honest discussion, prayerfully, and with the faith people come in and help them to cool down.
And where do we place then the voice of the people here? Namoya, coming to you. Given that we have given ourselves a constitutional architecture, which is so beautiful to an extent that we know when our elections will happen. We know when a new president is sworn in, between what time and what time, because largely informed by our dark past in terms of the conduct of elections and also the behavior of the country's political class. All these safeguards have been put in place by the writers of our constitution. Then when we have this architecture, which is predictable, why not then change this entire debate from the foundation and the base? First, register as voters. Second, take part in the elections. Third, put in place a government that works for the people. It's as simple as that. The 70% that we are talking about can form a majority block of more than 18 million registered voters, going by the numbers that we have per the Kenya National, that is the demographic survey, and also the voter register, which will change by the time we head to the elections in August 2027.
So, starting from where you started, when do we say we have a voice of the people? And when when you have a protest like the one we've had yesterday and last week, where the whole country, across parties, across tribes, across generations, is saying no to something, that's a voice of the people. Mm-hmm. You either choose to listen to it, or you choose to hide your head like the proverbial ostrich under the sand and call it organized criminals, but then you'll be calling the entire country organized criminals. That is basically the voice of the people. When people make presentations to parliament, people go to court, and the court says, actually, what you have done goes against the constitution. The constitution is the contract between the people and the leaders. So if you violate that contract, and the courts are saying, you have violated the contract, so go back and look at it, and you choose to threaten the people who went to court and the courts themselves, you're basically disregarding the voice of the people who put you in power. So do we go back to the basics and vote a government that will listen to us and serve us? You see, we have had this long conversation since 2017, 2013, 2007, about something that people have described as electoral justice. So before that issue of electoral justice has not been resolved. It goes to the fundamentals of how our electoral system works. The IEBC, the tallying process and all that, people don't feel that there's a section of the population in this country that feels that they don't actually get the leaders that they actually voted for. So we need to address that issue, and we need to have a very candid conversation. And then secondly, there were provisions in the law that empowered people to recall their leaders when they don't feel that their leaders are representing them adequately. There was a recall for MPs. Mm. That law went to Parliament, and parliamentarians decided to emasculate it and make it extremely difficult to recall an MP. I think people went to court. I saw last week the court was trying to simplify it. But it is still difficult. And when people feel they are cornered and they're not being listened to, and they don't feel a connection between the leadership and the people, a lot of things happen. That's why I say that's how societies explode. When institutions, like I've talked about institutions collapse, or leaders take deliberate steps to destroy institutions that we have spent so much time. In the 90s, after the 90s, that's 20 years, people have been working to establish these institutions. So when you come to power, and the first thing you do is to destroy police, start emasculating the judiciary, destroy parliament, destroy independent commissions, destroy everything so that the state becomes you and you become the state. That's a problem.
What then happens then of, for example, when you mention institutions, Katiba also outlines independent commissions that have security of, whose occupants have security of tenure in office cannot be sacked. What then happens to the conscience? What then happens, for example, to the institution of parliament, where MPs have even the power to impeach a sitting president?
But that power was supposed to be exercised in pursuance of the voice of the people. So as a representative of the people, when the government is not fulfilling its mandate, you can impeach him. But when you have a parliament that is compromised the way we are seeing, when you start hearing rumors of money going to parliament through being carried to parliament with sacks, and MPs admitting that they were given 2 million, that's not a parliament. You know, there was a sixth parliament under Moi. I think it was after the 1988 elections, which was initially declared the worst parliament Kenya has ever had. But the way this parliament is going, if they're not careful, it could be worse than the sixth parliament.
What then needs to happen at the ballot, given the conduct of the House? We have talked about the bicameral setup that we have. Again, all this comes back to the Kenyan people who, under Article 1, have the sovereign power to change the government through election, of course, through the ballot in a democratic process. Why then not take an account of what's happening at the moment and do that meaningful change which is required at the ballot? Because that is the opportunity that comes.
I've talked about the electoral justice. Basically, it talks about the integrity of our electoral process. Do the leaders we have are true reflection of the will of the people? When people go to vote, what the outcome of that vote, is it really what people have expressed, wanted? So we need to address the issue of the integrity of the electoral process.
Okay. Yes, Damas.
On your question, because I think this is important, and let's just be real also, and so we can be reflective and help one as a country. This is all our country, so let's be reflective. And there's a genesis of this problem, which you've said in terms of the election process. If you remember, last election, actually, most of us were really involved in it. One of the things we are trying to do is an initiative for new registers of voters, especially young people, our generation, say, go register, go register. My colleagues at IBC had a difficult problem registering young people. I was in this studio and many times, and the question was about the indifference of voters. The biggest demographic of people during the election, people who do not vote. True or false? It's very true. Very true, right? Yeah. 8.6 registered voters did not vote. Millions more who were supposed to register did not register and vote. And that's very important. So we as a generation, Gen Z and millennials, also have a responsibility to where we've gotten today. Because if they voted, maybe there will be a different outcome. Now, we cannot prove a negative in the philosophy we say, but that's just also acknowledging where we are as a country. The millions did not vote, millions did not register. Now, to your point coming in the next election, if you hear what they have said, because we monitor social media, I mean, people have sworn they will register and vote. To your point, Wakili, the question is then, will the people who will be elected reflective of us as a people in terms of our value systems? Yeah, but that's also important, because I can tell you, I'm not a political analyst and I don't make it a political issue. With the agitation and the anger and discontent across the country, especially with the young people, whether you voted yes or no in this bill, I don't think you're really coming back, because that's what you're saying. It's not an issue of yes or no now. It's an issue of you are the political class, you represent everything that we don't want. Okay, and that is why even you see those who have been opposed to the bill, who are trying to hijack the movement, being rejected, say, get out of our way. Yeah, and it's important. So I truly, that's why I say this is a seismic shift we have in politics. And really we can be reflective. And who is wise? A wise leader. Now, listen to these wise leaders in the country. Who is wise will be those who listen out to the people and see the mood shift and change and tone and say, you know, the ground, as we say in the country, our ground is really different. It is truly different. I don't think people appreciate, I don't think we as leaders appreciate how the ground has genuinely shifted and changed. This is not status quo anymore. And who is wise is to read the ground and say, you know what, the bosses, which is the people, are saying this, and we need to listen and go with them. Now, whether wrong or right, you will say, no, you have a boss. If your boss says, do this, whether you agree or not, you ought to do. Now, your boss can be wrong, but he's your boss. Then do what he's told you to do. Then you say, no, hey, you told me to do this, and these are the consequences. Then, it didn't work. Let's do it differently. So I think that is what, in a reflective...
To be clear, the boss in this case are the Kenyan people.
Yes, absolutely.
But in many aspects, parliamentarians have been trooping to State House, whoever the occupant, whether the previous president or the current one, and they seem to be reading from the same hymn sheet as him.
Yeah. But we need to listen to the boss. The boss, your boss is your party leader. According to this constitution, the sovereign will of the people, it's the Kenyans who are the bosses. And if 95% of Kenyans who are saying, do this, wisdom dictates. The tenets of democracy dictates. We are democracy, right, Wakili, right?
Yes.
Now, if you're a democracy, our tenets dictate that you listen to the will of the people. You understand? It's simple wisdom here. This is actually not very complicated. Now, whether you can agree with your bosses or not, fine. But if your bosses says do this, then you can think your bosses are wrong. Acknowledge your dissent. Even sometimes in boards, we acknowledge dissent. We can agree and say, no, me, I do not agree, but at least dissent is recorded. But then follow that instruction. It's good to listen to the masses because generally...
And for a very long time, parliamentarians have been either deaf or dead against what the public says, and given its conduct as well. If you look at how Parliament had debated the sugar report in 2018, it was so wanting, and the alarming uncertainty about their conduct also regarding money that exchanged hands in the toilets of Parliament, going to funerals and talking down on people. And this is an educated generation that is taking account of every event that's happening in our country.
And that's how I said earlier, that the finance bill is a trigger. This is a culmination, aggregation of so many things that have been happening. Yeah. And people said, now enough is enough. We need to change course. Yeah. And that's what people are saying, basically.
Wakili, what would it mean in terms of injecting the medicine needed in our democracy's bloodstream, or even the prescription, in having an independent parliament in the sense that voters put in place leaders who champion for the interests of the public?
Ayub, I think that's a very important question because it can even be the panacea to the issues that we have. Because the moment we have structured our politics in terms of political parties, and political parties, of course, mainly are tribal. We are trying to move away from that. But that is the main vehicle through which people acquire power, either by going to parliament or by ascending to presidency. It is high time that we try and look at people, and vote for people, not based on the political parties that sponsor them, but based on the ideals that they have. And that is why I'm happy this time we had so many independent candidates who are successful. But unfortunately, for one reason or another, because of the ills that affect us, you find that they are the first ones to line up when money is being given, and they actually negate the will of the people. But gradually, I think we will be able to do that. But again, we must look at our history. And you look at aspects that affect us, and the more you look at your history, the more you'll actually see the wrongs and correct what is going forward. Right now, we are being told there is an aspect of treason. And ideally, I want to say that in terms of treason, the first person who, in terms of our history, who committed treason is Jesus Christ. And you look at, and those were the charges leveled against him. And if you look at one of the aspects here, if our government was there in place then, you know, they would have actually, Jesus will be in court today morning, because in Matthew 21:12-17, it says, Jesus went straight to the temple, threw out everyone who had set up shop, buying and selling. He kicked over the tables of loaves, shacks, and stalls of dove merchants, and he quoted this text, my house was designated as a house of prayer. You have made it a hangout for thieves. Parliament has become a hangout for thieves. It is our house. We are told we cannot do what Jesus did. It becomes treason. And again, here the will of the people comes in. When Jesus and Barnabas were put there, Pontius Pilate, I believe, actually asked, should I proceed as against him? And he saw nothing. But the will of the people at that point is what he followed. And the people may have been wrong, and they were wrong. But again, the will of the people, and God allowed that to happen, because that was how it was structured. Whether they are wrong, whether they are right, respect the will of the people. Maybe that is the route that God wants us to follow to learn some things. So I don't have any doubt in my mind that the president means well in terms of even what he thinks. But unfortunately, or the reality is that even when Moses was so angered by the Israelites, I believe, he actually went back to God and asked, what do I do? You know, and God, knowing that this person may even have his own shortcomings and issues, said, go back, but you will not see the promised land. The president may have all what he wants, but it does not mean that within 5 years, within 10 years, we must, you know, kaza kamba mpaka, it actually, we end up dying. It means just put those foundations, take us slowly. We will reach there, we will appreciate. Kibaki did that, we are appreciating up to now. You do not need to achieve everything within a short period of time at the expense of lives. Let us look at that, let us reason, let us learn from that. And Kenyans themselves, and especially the young generation, yes, let them learn from that.
In that scripture that he has just quoted, it has the answer where we should go as Kenyans.
I appreciate that you're my biblical guy.
When Jesus went in the temple, the first thing he demanded purity.
Yes.
By kicking people out, he said, this house must be purified. And then after purified, he said, now it should become a house of prayer. Yeah. Sometimes we pray before we purify, before we demand purity. And the purity will come in from where I work. There is something we call practice and procedure. What we do and how we do it. Until we change our practice and procedure towards our election of leaders, it becomes a problem. There must be a tool that demands purity. And then comes to prayer. And then from prayer, now we come to action. Action itself. So what's the practice here? The practice here that we are put in place to be able to give us meritocracy is a problem. Instead, we get mediocrity. Instead of getting meritocracy, we get mediocrity. We don't get the real people in the process. So what are the manual do we follow? Are these manual from bottom in our hearts? Or they are just manual here that we get because the end justifies the means? Where we are is because of not being genuine with one another. We are talking about Gen Z. We are pretending they are Gen Z, and yet all of us are on the street. Until Kenyans come and say, it's not only Gen Z. Yesterday, you are saying they were goons there. Those goons are the brothers of those Gen Z. So did they come out and say, yes, we are part of them? They are saying, they are just Gen Z. So let's come out and be clear, be open to one another. Even 2027, if we don't come up with that, what the scripture you have read, let's demand purity. And purity will bring in meritocracy.
But then how can we achieve, Danvers, that democratic purification, given what Dr. Kanga had talked about? Because we seem to be losing the target at any given time when the opportunity presents itself.
You know how we can achieve it? It has been happening in our jurisdiction. First of all, these millennials and Gen Zs are not putting a reverse gear on what they have started. There's no reverse gear to this. I'm just telling you that. And it's a reality. And you achieve that by, one, you've mentioned about the recall process. And I know in social media there's been signatures going around to recall MPs who voted according to what the people do not want. But you achieve that. There was a time, actually, especially in the US, there is usually a wave, because they have midterm elections, okay? And when people are really fed up with a specific administration's policies, whether it be the Democrats, Republicans, you see a wave both in Congress and in Senate of just people, everybody who was part of that administration or that policy, just go out. Yeah, okay, we see with a reaction, and sometimes a reaction which is never good. So whether it's a Tea Party movement, from liberal policies to ultra-conservative policies, you see that pendulum swing. So it is because we are democracy, governed by constitution. It begins with the people. Then they are saying, and there will be that purge, which Dr. Guy is saying. They are saying, enough is enough of these people, and the purge will go. Not whether you voted, however you voted. This is not the issue. It's just the representative of an issue, and that's why. So for me, we stick to 7, if not sooner. If the petitions to recall continue, no matter how hard it is, because you've seen the determination of these young people of paying their Uber, of buying their own food in KFC and Java breakfast. You see, they're really determined, and no matter how hard they made it hard to recall, with the determination they have, I will not be surprised. They actually succeeded in a few instances to address the question of the purge. My prayer is genuinely that the leaders who are there, all of us,
yes, now
we listen and now start changing course and say, you know what, we could have been wrong in this. Hey, we need to listen to that, because that is true repentance. Repentance means to change your mind. Okay, it is changing your mind, how you're thinking, then how you acted. So if there's not genuine, if Gen Zs and millennials don't see, and the whole country doesn't see, there's a change of tone and practice. Okay. The reverse gear is not going to be pulled. I truly pray now that can be. And lastly, there's one of the people said that one of the viewers said Kenyans are not united. I think Kenyans are united. I don't think we've ever been united as now. If you look at, whether this was a political movement, yes. So there was no yellow and blue like we had during elections. It was all yellow and all blue saying something together.
Thank you.
So Kenya actually is united on.
Yes,
on
Namwai, the final word.
The final word is, for me, is that the protests should be seen for what they are. They are a form of expression by Kenyans. And even if they continue after today, I understand their protest tomorrow.
But no such the communication you talked about. You mean by who?
No, I've seen messages saying their protest tomorrow. That was the plan. From what I saw, I don't know by who, but the messages are going around. Even if they go on tomorrow. They are a form of expression. They are allowed under our constitution and under international law, and the state has a responsibility to protect the right to protest. To the extent that the protesters have remained peaceful like they were last week and as they were earlier yesterday, I think the state has a responsibility to allow people to protest as a form of expression and listen to what the people are saying, because the protests have only come after a lot of other avenues of communication and expression have failed, and therefore address the concerns that Kenyans have, which have been triggered by the finance bill, but are much broader. They go all the way to issues of last year and before, the economic policies that people feel are unfair to them, and so on.
Much appreciated. So we finish up, gentlemen, with this statement from the Law Society of Kenya dated 25th of June, and which also embodies rather a message to the American ambassador Meg Whitman, where the Law Society of Kenya says this was a historic enough that on Monday, 24th of June 2024, as Haiti-bound Kenyan police officers took to the skies, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, invoked Section 517 of the America's Foreign Assistance Act, designating Kenya as a major non-NATO ally of the United States of America. Questions that the Law Society of Kenya is posing to the American ambassador, and also the extent of the concerns of what the Law Society says was Black Tuesday, and not just as an advocate of the High Court in regards to the President of the Law Society, but equally as a peace-loving patriot, and the address she made to the American ambassador. Also this morning, we had received communication and in regards to the reaction of what happened in Kenya yesterday from the U.S. State Department, which condemned the violence that was witnessed in Kenya. That was a brief statement. But also from New York in the United States of America, the HQ of the United Nations, the Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, "I'm deeply saddened by the reports of deaths and injuries, including of journalists and medical personnel in Kenya connected to the protests and the street demonstrations in Kenya. I urge the Kenyan authorities," says Guterres, "to exercise restraint and call for all demonstrations to take place peacefully." Those are some of the global reactions that came through early this morning following what was an event-filled Tuesday yesterday and culminated with the speech from the head of state at State House in Nairobi, a defining moment for his administration and the course of action next, with the papers highlighting much of the events which happened yesterday, including the breach of Parliament's security and also the deaths that were witnessed. 145 people injured, 125 of that number admitted at the Kenyatta National Hospital, and at least 20 others across various healthcare centers in the country. A day that also saw the gazettement that was issued by the Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale, and which many lawyers across the country have challenged its constitutionality given the timelines that were never specified therein, with the deployment of the Kenya Defence Forces to assist the National Police Service in the staving off of more protests. The head of state also issued treason warning as the military is unleashed against the rioters. Danvas Makori is a commissioner with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Dan Okach is an advocate of the High Court. Namoya Otsieno, on my immediate right, Associate Director, Africa for the Human Rights Watch, and Dr. Alphonse Kanga, the Regional Chair, NCCK in Nairobi. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. What a time to have you as well at this defining juncture of our country. And thank you for watching the broadcast. Up next is Health and Lifestyle with Safin Achieng Oma. And we'll see you on Friday morning here on the broadcast. Till then, good morning.